could tell you exactly what's pissing you off about so many of your clients right now. They signed up with you, raring and ready to go. They told you they were committed, ready to do anything, had enough of their own bullshit, and were making this the time that they turned their life around. It probably lasted a maximum of 12 weeks before their old patterns re-emerged. A missed check-in here, an off-plan week there. Now it's a constant cycle of non-adherence and an endless supply of solutions and strategies that you've provided that haven't worked. You might be thinking that you're attracting the wrong type of client, that you need to change your messaging, you need to be more direct in how you coach. But what if I told you it was none of these things and that there was an entirely different approach that you've never even heard of that would take all of these clients from coasting to winning in a matter of weeks? The problem is not the client or you, it's that you're using strategies for a time in coaching that they haven't yet arrived in. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the exact framework that got us results like these consistently in our Gen Pop coaching business and led to a 2+ year average retention rate. If you've got clients that you know are coasting and close to ghosting, I'm going to show you exactly how to get them back on track and towards the result. So when we're talking about the process of change, right, what we have to understand is that people in contemplation are stuck between what they should do and what they want to do, right? So you get people over here and that kind of, I know that I need to do something, right? I know that there's a problem. I know that I need to do something about it. I'm just not entirely sure what the thing is or how I get started, right? Pre-contemplation people have no idea that there's even a problem. They're living in a kind of like ignorant bliss. They don't even recognise that the way they're living or the things that they're doing are the cause of their problems, right? They don't know that yet. However, when we get more to that contemplation stage, people start to recognise, right, hold on a minute, maybe I've got some personal responsibility here for why this is the way that it is. Maybe I have some influence and control over changing it. So an example of this would be people who recognise that actually poor sleep is a huge source of the stress that they're experiencing, right? And actually once they recognise, oh, hold on a minute, if that's contributing, what else might be contributing, right? They start to become slightly more aware of the problem at hand, that they probably could do something about it or that they have a responsibility about it, but they don't yet know what the thing is or how to get started doing the thing, right? So what we have to recognise is that for a lot of people, they join your coaching programs somewhere between contemplation and preparation. People rarely sign up for a coaching action. And I think something that I want to make super clear, coaches get this wrong all the time. See people who need coaching, they will behave like a person who needs coaching, right? They're not going to be this all singing, all dancing client who's 80% of the way there and just needs a few tweaks of their programming to get to the result. Those types of people don't buy coaching. The type of people who buy coaching are people who need coaching, okay? So they will not join and are ready to hit the ground running place. People who sign up with certain coaches who they maybe have a bit more experience behind them, they maybe have been training for a while, they've gone through a fat loss process before, or they've gone through a fat loss process on their own but they now want to go through like a physique goal. If you're a really good coach who's really good at what you do, you will probably attract more of those people. If you are a general run-of-the-mill Gen Pop coach, which there is no shame in, there is a huge Gen Pop that needs served, please don't expect clients to come to you in a hit the ground running phase. You are much more likely to sign up the part of the population that is struggling, stuck and needs help, okay? So please don't be surprised when people behave like they need coaching when they've bought coaching, okay? So in this phase, they know that they should do something, but they prefer doing what they want to do. Now, that can sometimes sound a wee bit reductive or a wee bit simplistic. The reality here is people will always do what they want to do more than what they should do until they build a level of tolerance and resilience that shows them that very often when they do what they should do, it brings them more of what they want. Okay, in that initial phase of working with someone who hasn't yet developed the necessary level of resilience or awareness to know that, they're going to really struggle with doing things that they don't want to do. And if all your coaching offers them is doing things that they don't want to do over and over and over and over, they're not going to want to work with you, right? If they start out the journey with you and you're just trying to force them to do repeated shit that they don't want to do, they're not going to engage with the coaching process, okay? The way that we have to coach these people is moving them through these stages to get them to action. The biggest mistake that I watch coaches make is they try and force someone into that action stage, right? When actually they need to coach someone towards it. So this looks like exploration instead of persuasion, right? So a lot of coaches will spend their time persuading, convincing, trying to handhold their clients, trying to convince them to do the most basic stuff. And coaches find that really, really frustrating. The reason you find it frustrating is because it's not coaching. And the client also finds it frustrating because they go, why do I need help with such basic things? Why can I not do them on my own, right? Instead of persuasion, we have to think about exploration instead, right? So instead of, why are you finding it so hard to get started? We're asking the client, what are the benefits of staying the same? What are the benefits of changing, and which has more benefits? The harsh reality here is, until there is more benefit to the client of changing than staying the same, they're not going to go in favour of change. Now, when you ask clients this question, they can think, well, there's no benefit of staying the same because I don't want to stay the same. But actually, there are benefits if they're continuing to choose it. Remember that people will always select familiar discomfort over unfamiliar discomfort. So what you're asking them to embark on through the journey of change is unfamiliar discomfort. And even though where they are right now is uncomfortable, it's familiar. The brain will always choose familiarity, predictability and safety over anything else. So that enough can be a reason for someone to stay stuck in a place that they don't want to be with no idea why they can't change. The familiarity alone is very often enough of a reason for people to say, I am going to stay put. I'm going to stay exactly where I am, and cause them to continue to choose old behaviour patterns, old habit loops, as opposed to create new ones. It doesn't mean that they don't want it enough. It doesn't mean that they're uncoachable. It just means that you're spending too much time trying to persuade them into a place that they are not yet ready to be, okay? So we have to explore what's keeping you here. What are the benefits? What's it doing for you? When I worked with Mark on the gym floor back in the Built for Life days, Mark asked me this question. He said to me, write a list for me of all your reasons for staying the same and all your reasons for changing, and then come back, bring it back to me or text it over to me. And when I wrote down the reasons for changing, I think I had 3. When I wrote down the reasons for staying the same, I had about 20. Okay, once you get your client to do an exercise like this, we're not trying to fix it, we're just trying to raise their level of awareness. This is exploration and saying, so how do we move some of these over to here? If your benefits of staying the same are massively outweighing your benefits of changing, how do we start to transfer some over, okay? Remember, be led by the client. They are the expert here. You don't need to spend your time convincing or persuading when you can just spend time exploring, okay? What we need to recognise is that a lot of coaches will spend a lot of their time convincing because they don't know how to coach, right? And if a lot of your coaching feels like convincing your clients to do the basics, convincing them to track, convincing them to go and get their steps, convincing them to drink water, convincing them to get 8 hours of sleep, and you feel like you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting trying to explain the benefits and how this will help them towards their outcome and how necessary this is for their health, you just sound like a critical parent, right? You just sound like the parent that's saying, eat your broccoli and go to your bed at 8 o'clock because I said so. And that causes them to do one of 2 things. They either become the rebellious child and go, fuck you, I'm not doing that, right? Or they become the compliant child and lie to you and go, okay, yeah, I promise I'll do it, right? And then they still don't do it. And we're creating a dynamic there in coaching that makes coaching impossible, okay? You have to step away from convincing and into coaching. So when people aren't meeting the agreed requirements of the outcome, we just explore why. We don't go in with judgment or frustration or you really need to do this or you told me you were going to do this. All of that puts a really unhelpful dynamic in place in the relationship that stops coaching from taking place. And this honestly is why I think so many coaches lose clients before their time or struggle to recommit people, because they spend way too much time in that punishing parent or that almost like hand round the shoulder, nurturing parent. Oh, it's okay, don't worry, we'll get there. You spend way too much time parenting your clients instead of being their equal and coaching them and saying, listen, we're both two adults who want the same thing here. So let's figure out how we get it. Let's figure out your half, let's figure out my half, and then we'll get closer towards it. That's what coaching is. So I really want you to take some time, if you're watching this, to consider, how much time am I spending convincing and how much time am I spending coaching? Convincing is, here is all the stuff that you need to do. Coaching is, what are you going to do? It puts the responsibility back onto the client to figure out their own answers, their own solutions, and take responsibility for their own behaviour. That's the key difference, okay? So one of the strategies that you can use to do this is a motivational interviewing tactic, okay, called elicit, provide, elicit. Now, what this does is this teaches your clients more information relevant to the thing that they're struggling with without you coming across as preachy, but also helps them to actually retain it. Because if you're constantly just firing information at them, remember, information and application are two very different things. If you're constantly just firing information at your clients and you feel that they're not retaining it, it's because of how you're delivering the information, right? So say, for example, you have a client, let's go back to sleep, right? Not to actual sleep, I wish, right? Hopefully this video is not putting you to sleep, right? Let's go back to the topic of sleep. Say, for example, you have a client who says to you, I'm not losing any weight, okay? I'm sticking to the plan, I'm sticking to the programme, and my weight just is not budging. And you look at everything and you figure out that they're getting 5 hours of broken sleep per night, right? Now, instead of saying to this client, the reason that you're not losing fat is because you're not getting enough sleep and it's probably causing you to overeat. They go, I'm not overeating, what are you talking about? Immediately trust broken, they feel misunderstood, okay? Instead, use this strategy. What do they already know? Ask them. Tell me, how much do you know about sleep and how it's connected to the fat loss process? Oh, well, I know that sleep's important, but I have a really busy and stressful life, but I don't really understand a lot about how it impacts fat loss. Or, no, I know that if I don't sleep enough, it can make me quite stressed, and I know that stress can be bad for your body when you're trying to lose weight, right? Figure out what they already know, then provide. Offer information that helps them to connect the dots, right? Well, did you actually know that there's research that shows that a lack of sleep or poor sleep can increase the hunger hormone? I think it's ghrelin. You can abuse me in the comments if I got that wrong. And that can actually lead people to overeat unconsciously because that hormone increases after poor sleep, right? Did you know that? What's your thoughts on that, right? Elicit, provide, elicit. So what do you know? Here's some information, now what do you think? Actually, I didn't know that, and that makes a lot of sense, that's probably linked directly to why I'm struggling to lose weight. Okay, so instead of us just focusing and zeroing in on calories, can we focus maybe on prioritising sleep? Can we try and improve that area over the next couple of weeks? Let's look at your sleep hygiene and where we can make a small improvement and see if that has a positive impact on fat loss. Great. So instead of what could have happened, which was, oh, you're overeating, calories, we go, okay, let's look at something that maybe we have previously overlooked. Buy in, trust, they see a better result and they go, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. Less time convincing, more time coaching, okay? Now remember, the goal here is to explore and gather information, not to force and prescribe. When we force and prescribe, it breaks trust and it damages psychological safety. If the client doesn't feel psychologically safe, they cannot progress, and this is where the vast majority of coaches go wrong, right? We can spend the same time staying in this stage of change, figuring this out to get it right, that you would then spend forcing something that's wrong and continues to fail. Let the client in on this, okay? If you figure out after working with somebody for some time that they are not yet at the stage of change necessary for change, right, for action, let them in on that and say, listen, over the past few weeks I've recognised that we've been trying and failing at a few different things and that you're not potentially yet at the stage necessary to see the results that you're looking for. However, this doesn't mean that we can't work together. What it means is that we just need to try a different approach to get you ready for action, okay? So let's spend some time here figuring this out and trying some of these strategies so that you can start to see more progress, right? Sometimes when you talk to clients about slowing down, stepping back, taking things at an easier pace, they go, aye, right? Because they don't want to get to their goal slower. Nobody wants that. You wouldn't want that, okay? But this is all about helping the client to understand that the thing that they want sits on the other side of this. This is not going slower towards the goal. This is doing the necessary step instead of trying to jump to the next one before it's even possible to see progress, okay? We are really looking to sit with the client and explore. We're asking a lot of questions. We're holding a lot of space. We're challenging beliefs. We're listening for thoughts. We're listening for behavioural repetition patterns. We're really looking for as much information as we possibly can get to work with and make the client clear on that. The goal here is not to move forward. The goal here is to understand and gather enough information so that we can get enough to be able to then actually move forward, okay? Because what happens is that the client gets stressed out by your need for urgency, or what they perceive as your need for urgency, when they do a check-in every single week and they've not made progress, or they've got the same problem and you're going, come on, we really need to get this together, we really need to move forward. They start getting stressed, so they start trying to go faster. You get then stressed by their need for urgency because they're trying to go faster and you're trying to go faster, so you go faster, they go faster, right? You look at this Spider-Man meme. You need to be the one that says, let's give ourselves permission to slow down and figure this out. Because if you feel pressured by their need for urgency, I need to get them to the goal, I need to get them the result, they've only committed for 3 months and I need to make sure they get a result in that 3 months. Why are you doing all the things then that will stop them from getting that result? They're going, I've committed for 3 months and I'm only paying for 3 months, so I need to make sure that I get a result. But actually, you're both just going back and forward on something that's going to prevent the result from ever being possible, okay? So instead of 3 months of the constant repetitive cycle of trying and failing, let's spend that time establishing a really strong foundation that allows you to move through those first couple of stages of change, so that action is then possible with less friction, less issues and more consistency. Because in reality, that's what the client wants, right? That's what you want. You've just not thought about there being a different process to get there. But you need to understand that the process of action towards outcome and the coaching process that sits inside that is extremely different than the coaching process that gets somebody to action, okay? Another tool that you can use here for somebody, if you feel like they're starting to kind of drop off a bit, you feel that they're losing interest, you feel that they're coasting, you think that conversation's going to come, that message is going to come soon that says, listen, I'm out of here, I don't think this is working for me. You can also use this on a retention call if you have somebody that's leaving, or a churn call. If you have somebody that's leaving, this is a really good way to coach them around understanding the reality without coming across as pushy or trying to keep them tied in or anything like that. This is the 2 futures exercise, but what you do is you walk the client through what will happen based on what has happened with you already. Okay, so if the client says to you, I can go and do the rest on my own, great. I am delighted for you that you think that you are now in a position where you can do the rest of this on your own, because that's exactly what coaching seeks to achieve. So I am delighted to hear that in comparison to how you came to start working with me, you now feel capable, confident, competent. That means that the work that we've done here has worked. So I'm delighted to hear that, and you should be, right? So many coaches get triggered by that. You still need me, you still need me. You don't want to create the level of dependence that the client can never function without you. And also, that's your complex as a coach to work on. If you think that, oh my God, you can't do this on your own, you need me, right? If the client says that to you, that's a good thing that they feel that way. And now all we need to do is map out the 2 possible realities of them continuing to work with you, not continuing to work with you, and making sure that they do actually have everything that they need, okay? And that needs to be your intention, not saving the client, helping them to predict the future and what is likely to happen based on what has already happened, okay? So future 1 is they stay with you, right? Future 1 of staying with you means when they have this event coming up, what will they do? right? So working towards your next event, what will we do together? This could be a wedding, this could be a birthday, this could be a performance event. What will we do together in order to be able to get you prepped for there? Okay, and then when it's coming up for summer, how do you want to look, feel when you're going your summer holiday? How will we work together around that time inside the coaching to focus on you getting what you need? Well, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that, right? Based on what you've learned already, or how things have been for you over the last 3 months, what do you think has to change for the next 3 months with us working together for you to feel like you're learning from your experience and moving forward well? X, Y, Z, okay? Future 2 is what they will do without you, right? So future 2 would look something like, okay, so in the next 3 months, you have such and such social event, you have a wedding. What has happened previously when you've gone to a wedding is you've enjoyed yourself a bit too much, you've been hungover for a couple of days, and then you have a couple of weeks where you really struggle to re-engage, get back on track, you don't go to the gym for a while, and your eating kind of goes a bit haywire, you regain a bit of weight, and you find that quite difficult to get back into the zone and focus back on your nutrition and your training. Normally what we would do is X, Y, Z. So when that wedding comes up, tell me what your plan is for how you'll get back on track without that work that we normally do together, right? What you're not saying is you need me and you still need my help. What we are saying is the last time this happened, this is what you did, this is what we did together, and this is what helped you to continue towards your goal. Now that you no longer have this, what's your plan for how you'll handle this on your own? What you're not doing is telling them you can't handle it on your own. What you're asking them is to think ahead of a blank that they have not yet filled. They'll go, oh, well, I would just do the same thing that we do, but on my own. Okay, so you would blah, 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 but without blah, blah, blah. Am I hearing that right? Yes. Okay, or they'll go, actually, I never realised how much you do help me when I've had those sorts of situations, or actually I'm now just realising that without the check-in or without you checking in on me and speaking to me, I would probably end up going a bit longer, being off track, off plan, blah, blah, blah. So you're not telling them that they can't do it without you. You're asking them what their plan is for something that they have not yet considered, right? And you're just asking them to consider it. You plant the seed and you leave it there. This is a really good way of helping the client to be realistic about what the future will hold for them. If you do future 2 and they can fill all those blanks and they have a plan for all of those things, that you have evidence that they can confidently execute on their own, then they're ready to graduate and they're ready to go, and that is a good thing. All coaching should have a beginning, middle and end. So if they're ready for it to end and they've got everything they need, that's a sign that it's worked. Okay, so I'm going to give you something. If you DM me on Instagram at coach.with.jen, if you send me the number 14, I'll send you my 4-step process that takes a client from coasting to winning, okay? I have a full training recorded on this that I've done already with our Built for Coaches clients that's all about coaching this gap from kind of pre-contemplation, contemplation, ready into action. For any clients that you have that you're really struggling to get engaged and make consistent progress, I took our guys through a full training with this 4-step process and multiple different tools that gets the client into that action stage and gets them consistently winning. If you DM me 14 on Instagram, I will send this over to you for free, no obligation, and you can put all of those tools into practice with your own clients. So shoot me a DM, 14 on Instagram, I'll send it over to you. And if you need any other support putting it into place, or you've got any questions for me, then you can ask me over there. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next one.